that tree was dead. I mean, there was nothing left of it,
Mm-hmm.
nothing. And yet, out of this, you have this new growth that is just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it just modeled, God's work in your life of restoration and creating a new person through salvation. It
Mhm.
blew me away looking at that.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those reminders. And I've seen numerous times through the orchard just of God's work.
Welcome to The Home and the Maker, sharing advice and encouragement about all topics homemaking and homesteading, and honoring the maker in all of it. Join Megan from Shine.fm for today's conversation.
Happy fall. This is the season for all things apples and pumpkins, which is why today's episode covers a conversation all about apples and most specifically their production. If you've ever wondered about the care of the apples you're picking for fun or for your baking and preserving needs or just wanting to grow apples yourself. But joining me today is Paul, the Vice President of Crop Operations from Royal Oak Farm Orchard in Harvard, Illinois. Thank you for joining me, Paul.
Great to be here.
Well, first of all, I just want to say how much I love that your orchard is just unashamedly an orchard with the mission to glorify God. Like front and center on your website, you have your mission for your family farm that it's to glorify God, serve the community, and produce quality fruit, grow family traditions. So I just absolutely love that. But first, would you start off with just kind of a brief overview of your orchard and how your mission kind of permeates through the whole operation?
Sure. Well, our whole attitude with the operation is that we've been given a beautiful piece of land here that God's provided for us, and we're just the caretakers of it. It's
Mhm.
His, and we've always looked to Him for guidance and understanding on how best to take care of it.
Yeah.
Um, it originally was started by my grandparents back in the early 90s. They had
Mhm.
purchased the property with the intention of planning to retire there.
Okay.
But they ended up getting involved with a grower that was from California that was into vegetables and fruits. And he had the concept and idea that maybe we should try to do something with this land. They had over 120 acres that they had purchased.
Wow.
They were planning to rent it out to local farmers for commodity crops, corn and beans. And he said, why don't we try some different things? So he took about 5 acres of it and did some vegetables and started planting some fruit trees. And my grandpa got involved with it, loved it, and
Yeah.
felt, you know what, maybe we could do more with
Yeah.
this. And so he, within the next year, decided that apples were the best crop to grow in our area, that he
Okay.
seemed to have the most interest in the apples. And so he talked to this other grower and said, hey, let's plant a bunch of apple trees. Let's see what we can do with it. The next year, he ordered 5,000 trees, which is, a little bit more than just a few.
Yeah.
We thought it was a little crazy. We're like, what are you doing? You don't even know anything about apples.
Mm.
And he said, no, I'll learn it. We'll figure it out,
Yeah.
and we'll get it working. And so they planted them within a couple of years. They were adding more trees to other acreage on the farm. And so by 1994, they had about 10,000 trees,
Wow.
covering about 60 acres of tree area. And they really had a pretty full-fledged orchard going.
Yeah.
And we weren't involved with it at that point. We had other operations within the family we were doing. And so we were just kind of looking at it from the sidelines going, you're supposed to be retiring this. He was in his
Yeah.
60s and going, this isn't what, we had figured, but that's what God had planned. So
Yeah.
little do we know. So he got really active in learning and figuring out what he needed to do to grow a good crop. Found some markets. He started going to farm markets with the apples once they started producing.
Hmm.
And then he got the concept within a year or two. Hey, why don't we see if we can get customers to come to the farm and pick them themselves and enjoy
Yeah.
the operation and see the farm? So they started introducing the concept of adding a market and entertainment area for kids and
Hmm.
petting zoo and a bunch of other things. So he got going on that right away, and they opened it in 1997,
Okay.
and still we're doing farm markets as well. But they started opening the farm up to customers, and it was a big hit. And he continued to pursue that for several years. We started getting involved, the rest of the family, in the early 2000s. At one point here on the farm, we had 4 generations all working,
Wow.
operating here on the farm. So that was a real big blessing. It was
Yeah.
pretty incredible that all of us ended up from other avenues and other businesses and all ended up here.
Hmm.
And it's grown and expanded from that point, and we're keeping it going. So
That's
that's uh,
amazing.
that's kind of the background story to it. We have currently about 25,000 trees At
Wow.
this point. We have other crops we do as well, pumpkins, do a small amount of pumpkins. We're getting back into raspberries. We used to do
Okay.
raspberries years ago. We're
Gotcha.
getting back into raspberries. We have 2 acres of flowers,
Wow.
cut flowers that we do. We do hay, we do bees, we
Okay.
do a lot of different
Yeah.
operations within the farm. Plus, then we have our restaurant, our market, our bakery, entertainment area for kids. We have
Mhm.
rides for kids. We have animals you can come and visit. We have all kinds of activities
Yeah.
going on. So we stay plenty busy.
It sounds like it. That's amazing. So back up a little bit as far as like the production side of apples, starting
Mhm.
from the basics. Why can't you just, because I've tried this myself and it didn't work, why can't you just take an apple seed from like a grocery store apple and grow it? Like what's all involved in that?
Yeah, there's quite a bit that's involved in growing apples. And a lot of people don't realize apples genetically work much like other fruits and vegetable crops, where they are producing pollen in the blossom of the apple.
Mhm.
That pollen has to be pollinated by another source of pollen from a different variety or tree.
Okay.
If you took an apple seed, planted it, you would get a seedling that would grow.
Mhm.
It would produce blossoms, but those blossoms would get pollen introduced from other trees in the area, and the resulting fruit would actually be a mix of genetics from both that other tree and the tree that it originated from. And your crop would be constantly changing. So you wouldn't get
Gotcha.
the exact same apple on that tree every single year. One of the ways that we get all these new varieties of apples that are out there is through breeding programs, which are
Mhm.
doing that very thing. They're creating new varieties from breeding pollen from one original source and then breeding in from another source to try to generate a new variety. But
Gotcha.
in order to get the consistency of crop from one year to the next, the exact same variety year in and year out, you need to use a selected grafted tree. So what they do is you take a branch from a tree that's producing a specific variety.
Mhm.
You take that branch and graft it to a root of another tree. Most of the time in the commercial industry, they're using crabapple roots, believe it or
Oh,
not. So they're not actual apple,
yeah.
varieties that you would see out there. They're crabapple root. There's a lot of different genetics that you can utilize. And then they graft those two together. That tree will grow for at least 2 years. We receive it usually in the second year.
Mhm.
We'll plant it in the ground within 2 years. We'll start to harvest a crop off it. That crop will be genetically identical.
Yes.
So even though it's getting pollen sourced from other trees in the area, it actually will be genetically identical every year. So
Gotcha.
that's
Okay.
how we keep things consistent, and you get the exact same variety on the exact same tree every year.
Gotcha.
But there are a lot of people that are experimenting with different genetics out there to try to breed new varieties of apples. That is a constant program
Mhm.
that goes on in university level and with growers
Yeah.
all over the country. So yeah,
Gotcha.
that's the big difference. So if you plant a
Okay.
seedling, you will get a tree,
Yeah.
but you won't get the exact same apple that you planted. It'll end up being a little bit different. It's introduced and changes based on its environment and other pollen that's introduced to the tree.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, on your website, you explain that your apples aren't grown organically, yet you use bio-intensive integrated pest management methods to produce the fruit that allow you to use 80% less chemical sprays than other growers. So, can you explain what this method is and why your operation uses this method as opposed to like choosing a route of doing like a USDA certified operation?
Sure. Yeah, there's a big push out there for the organic industry and organic certification in general.
Mhm.
We were certified organic when we first originally started.
Okay.
So we were certified for about 5 years. What we came to find in our area here in the
Hmm.
Midwest, there are a lot of both pest and disease issues that the organic industry has not figured out a way to
Okay.
handle.
Yeah.
Most people think organic, the first thing that they think is not sprayed.
Gotcha.
That could not be farther from the truth. Um, in organic certification, they give you a list of products that you are allowed to use.
Okay.
And they are products that have been approved by an organic certification board and OMRI, and they are listed as these are approved for organic use. Most of the time, the products and create have an active ingredient in it that is originated from a natural source, and that's
Hmm.
why they're allowed to be used in the organic industry. However, most of those products, because they do come from natural sources, don't always go through as much rigorous testing as synthetic products do,
Yeah.
which a lot of people don't realize. Some of them do, some of them don't.
Hmm.
And we came to find that we were having to spray certain products that were certified organic
Hmm.
way too often
Yeah.
than we would like. We were having to do them on 5-day intervals, and
Wow.
they had very short efficacy. They just would not work. They wouldn't
Hmm.
last. And we just didn't feel that it was a program that was handling the problems we were running into. Number one, to produce a crop, and number two, wasn't as healthy as people figured it would be.
Yeah.
Because you're having to put products out there on a weekly constant interval that maybe they're from a natural source, but they still have toxicity
Hmm.
concerns in that, and there's still issues there that aren't completely um, able to be easily answered. So
Yeah.
we just felt like it was not as beneficial a program. We wanted to work with not only products that were effective, but also were the safest products to use in the least amount of times we have to use them.
Yes.
So there was other factors we wanted to include in our program. So what we have come up with is somewhat of a hybrid program.
Hmm.
We use some organic products, but we also use some non-organic products that are the safest products that we could possibly find to
Yeah.
use. Most commercial orchards in large scale, both in Michigan, New York, Washington State, they have more of a preventative program rather than a curative program. So they're going to be spraying the same routine every single year, no matter if they have the problem or not. They don't want to get the problem.
Gotcha.
We take a little bit more micromanagement approach to it, where we actually, with IPM, the principles of IPM in general are that you are trying to pinpoint problems. You're trying to figure out ways you can deal with the problem without having to spray. Maybe there's cultural methods or things you can change with the way
Right.
you're doing things that can address the problem. Maybe there's trapping for specific pests you can do that will alleviate that problem without having to spray. So we always look to other solutions before we rely on spraying. Spraying is always the last
Yeah.
solution to try to work with. And we have found that program to be very effective for us here because it has integrated in some really great tools that are really, really safe to use and really, really effective,
Hmm.
and create a healthier crop, honestly,
Yeah.
from what we were able to do with just the certified organic program in and of itself. Certain areas of the country, Washington State, especially, they can grow a certified organic apple much, much easier due to their climate and their
Yeah.
region, where they don't deal with scab, they don't deal with certain blight problems, they don't deal with certain pests at the same level that we do here. So it does change regionally to some degree. That does play an impact. But what we have found has been a very effective program for us that has worked really well and has still created a really healthy crop,
Yeah.
limiting the amount of spraying that we're having to do as compared to a commercial orchard. And yeah, it's worked really well, really,
Hmm.
really well.
That's awesome. I mean, that's so helpful because, yeah, you immediately think organic is the best and something that's certified is going to be like free of all that stuff. But like you said, there's so much that goes into it behind the scenes that people don't know. So thanks for sharing all that. So this IPM system, does that mostly target the pests or like diseases is kind of wrapped into that too?
It's a holistic approach
Okay.
to the orchard. So it's not only pest diseases, maybe wildlife issues you might be dealing with, might be other concerns that fall into kind of an
Hmm.
umbrella of
Gotcha.
pest control. Diseases are probably the biggest consistent thing that you're having to deal with. Pests can be cyclical. They can be
Yeah.
weather dependent. If you don't get the weather for a certain pest, it can not be as big an impact as it might have been the year prior.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variables in that, but disease tends to be fairly consistent, other
Okay.
than certain funguses can vary based on rainfall.
Yeah.
So that can be an impact. But yeah, diseases tend to be the biggest issue here in the Midwest. High humidity levels and rainfall in the spring breed all kinds of disease
Gotcha.
problems. So
Okay. So now with it being harvest season, how do you know? I mean, it seems kind of obvious that like, oh, look, the trees have red apples, they're ready. But when you're kind of cycling the pickers through the apple trees, how do you designate, oh, this section is ready to be picked?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The customers have questions about that all the
Yeah.
time. Apple harvest is not only based on aesthetic look and
Hmm.
color, it's actually based on sugar levels, pressure levels, starch
Okay.
levels within the apple. So apples will pigment and color much earlier, depending on the sunshine and sunlight that's able to penetrate through the canopy. They
Yeah.
can color much earlier than they're actually ready.
Okay.
It is an indicator that the ripening process is beginning. So I always tell people that means that they are getting ready, but a lot of times they need a little bit more time to get
Yeah.
the right conversion of starches to sugars in the apple. So what we usually go through and do is a Brix testing
Hmm.
on our varieties. So we'll actually test the varieties on a every couple day process. If we think they're getting close to that window,
Yeah.
we can tell within a day or two that this is the right level they should be at, and they're actually ready for picking.
That's awesome.
So we do a little bit of scientific testing on it. With at least with my experience over the years, I can bite into it and know right away,
Yeah.
yeah, it's ready or no, it's not. But we do some scientific testing to kind of nail that, right when it's the peak of ripeness and when we'll have the
Gotcha.
best window to pick it.
That's cool. I didn't even know that was a thing. So how much will the average like full grown apple tree produce, maybe pound wise or bushel wise in a season?
That can vary a lot on the type of tree.
Okay.
And that actually ties back to that original point about grafting. With the roots that are used, we can actually pinpoint specific roots that will grow a certain size tree.
Mm,
So that's another way that orchards can create a very consistent look and uniformity to their orchard. They use the exact same root stock,
yeah.
only allows the tree to grow about 14, 15 feet. Some of them only allow 10 to 12 feet. Some of them are
Okay.
16, 18 feet. So you can kind of control the growth of the tree. The size of the tree will determine how much crop you're able to yield on it. Most what we call high density growing systems now, we're producing anywhere from 3/4 of a bushel to maybe close to a bushel per tree.
Okay.
That is approximately anywhere from like 25 pounds to 35 pounds, give or take,
Yeah.
on average. Some of our older trees, we can get upwards of 2 to 3 bushels,
Okay.
but they also take up a lot more space.
Yeah.
So with a higher density, the amount of crop on the tree goes down, but the density of trees per acre goes up. So you actually
Okay.
end up with about 10% to 15% more production on the same land with the smaller trees. So
Gotcha.
it's kind of deceptive because they look a lot smaller and you're like, oh man, there's not, as many apples on that tree. But when you have so many in a tight area, you end up with more crops.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense. Okay. So, with the apples you harvest at your orchard, what do you turn the apples into? I mean, a lot is for you pick, but what are the kinds of products that in-house you guys are producing for sale?
most of it is for bagging for fresh pick fruit.
Okay.
But we do make cider on site. We do thousands of gallons of cider every year. We also do caramel apples. We
Okay.
turn them into caramel apples. We turn them into pies. We turn them into applesauce. So we have multiple uses for the crop. Probably the biggest secondary use is cider by far,
Okay.
because cider is very, very popular. We turn a lot of apples into juice, every year.
Yeah.
That is somewhat varietal specific, so it depends on the variety,
Okay.
on what its uses can be.
Hmm.
We are a little more, because we have the luxury of being a little more specific on what we want to put in our cider, what we want to put in our pies.
Yeah.
So some varieties will fall into those categories while other varieties may not. So
Yeah.
it just kind of depends.
What are some of those varieties that make the best ciders?
The varieties that tend to be the best in cider tend to have a more complex characteristics to them, I guess is the best way to put
Okay.
it. So it's a little bit deceptive because some of your tartar apples actually end up being better
Hmm.
for the finished sugar level product in your cider. So,
Okay.
for example, one that's used ubiquitously, I think, in most of the industry is Macintosh for
Hmm.
cider.
Okay.
Um, it's one that gives a lot of body to cider, but also has the right complexity of acids, tannins, and uh, can be used in a blend and mix.
Yeah.
You're able to utilize it for a lot of different things in that characteristic, but it's not a great apple in our use for pies, because
Okay.
it tends to be a softer variety. It doesn't hold up well to baking as well.
Hmm.
Applesauce, it works great, but yeah,
Yeah.
every variety is a little bit different and have
Yeah.
different characteristics. So it makes it kind of fun and unique, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, Coming up with what's the best use for this variety, what can we do with
Right.
it?
That's cool.
and then educating the customers on that too.
Right. So, for the home orchard, for someone who just wants to grow an apple tree at home, what varieties would be the best for just like your typical little home orchard here in the Midwest?
Sure. There's several varieties I would say fall in that category. What I usually recommend, because we do also sell trees to
Hmm.
customers as well, usually what we recommend is try to get a couple different varieties that kind of span the ripening schedule, I guess is the best way
Okay.
to put it, so you can get harvest over a long period of time. So you're not just harvesting a 2 week window once a year and
Yeah.
then you're done. You want to be able to pick apples for a month or a month and a
Right.
half or whatever. So we try to tell people, but find the balance of varieties that fall in different categories, but also can pollinate each other well.
Hmm.
There are certain varieties that bloom at the right time so they can pollinate each other, and that's important. A good all around apple for most people that I recommend starting with is something like Gala, only because it's a sweet apple,
Yeah.
easy to eat. It's a very popular apple, and
Hmm.
it's a relatively easy apple to grow as
Okay.
compared to, say, Honeycrisp or some of the other ones.
Yeah.
It's not as ubiquitous for cider use, although some people do use it in cider, but it's great for fresh eating. It's great for applesauce. And then usually mixing in something like Empire that comes in a little bit later
Okay.
towards the end of September, early October. That is a great all around apple for just about anything.
Okay.
Originates from New York, but it's good for all kinds of stuff. We use it in
Yeah.
everything pretty much.
Cool.
And then you can always, get something that falls a little bit later, like Granny Smith, if you like a tart apple, or something along the lines of a Rayburn or something that's a little sweeter, that comes in later in the season
Yeah.
to kind of spread things out a little bit. But
Yeah.
there's so many different varieties out there, and they all are different and unique,
Yeah.
which is kind of fun.
That's awesome. So, how long from, say, your nursery, how long will it take for a tree coming home to then produce fruit?
Usually, you'll start to get apples within about 2 to 3 years. It can depend
Okay.
on the growth of the tree and location and sunlight.
Yeah.
But usually, you can figure within 2 or 3 years, you're going to start to get some crop. Even the first year you get in the ground, you may get one or two apples. I usually tell people to try to restrict the production the first year if you get anything,
Mm,
because the tree has to put its energy into growth to kind
yes.
of create a large enough canopy to support it later on. So you don't want to get too quick to allow it to fruit. You want to be patient and say, let's let it grow. Try to
Yeah.
get some growth on it before we start letting it crop. So
Gotcha.
that's
Okay.
important.
Very cool. Okay. So, final question. What has God shown you of himself to you personally as you've worked with the apple trees and been a part of the family farm?
Oh, there's been uh, dozens of lessons I've experienced out there in the orchard that have led me back to God's work, not only in my own life, but in other people's lives. One of the things we started noticing, that was probably, I don't know, 2, 3 years ago. We had some trees that had died out,
Mm,
and they were larger trees, had been there for a while. So we decided, let's cut them out, but let's leave the stump.
yeah.
And then when we take the full row out later on, we can pull the stump at that point. So these trees were completely dead, completely done. We cut the tree down, left about a foot and a half stump. Within about a year, 2 years, started noticing growth coming out of that stump.
Wow.
And we said, this is odd. I mean, this tree was dead as a doornail. It was gone. And then we left it and let it grow. And within, I would say, another 2 years, we had a
Hmm.
full blown tree again. And
Wow.
this tree was healthier than anything that was in that, I mean, row. It was
Yeah.
incredible. I've got probably 15 or 20 of them out there that just
Okay.
look amazing, absolutely amazing. And you go, that tree was dead. I mean, there was nothing left of it,
Hmm.
nothing. And yet, out of this, you have this new growth that is just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it just modeled, God's work in your life of restoration and creating a new person through salvation. It
Hmm.
blew me away looking at that.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those reminders. And I've seen numerous times through the orchard just of God's work and how he uses examples in nature and examples in farming and in all kinds of ways
Yeah.
to reflect his work and in ways that are so practical and beautiful.
Yeah.
I see them on a constant basis, which is one of the reasons I love doing what I do.
Yeah.
Is because I get to see those things on a daily, basis. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one that just blew me away, and I always remember because
Yeah, it's so cool.
yeah, when you think it's dead and gone and there's nothing left, and then all of a sudden you have this new growth that's just absolutely incredible and producing, and the fruit on it was amazing, and you're going, man, I was not expecting that. That was
Yeah.
nothing that I had expected. So that's a new practice now. We cut them, we leave them,
Yeah.
and let them do their thing. But yeah, it was just a great example.
Yeah,
I
it is.
love thinking of that one.
That's awesome. Well, Paul, thank you so much for your time, for sharing about your apple orchard and all that God's doing through it. And if you are listening and you want to learn more about the orchard, the website is Paul.
It's royaloak.farm, ROYAL oak.farm. And you can get all kinds of information there. We have our list of our varieties that we're currently picking and the ones that are going to be coming up, and all the activities going on, some of the new things that we have here at the farm, and all of our hours and schedule and everything. So that's all on the website there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Home and the Maker podcast. And for other podcasts from Shine.fm, visit the Shine.fm podcast channel.